The Middlebury Development Review Board for February 12th, 2018. First thing I'll do is go over the one business agenda for tonight. It's an application request by Middlebury College for an amendment to their existing plan unit development and final conditional use approval for the proposed academic swing space building adjacent to Johnson Building at the north end of E-Lot, in the south end of E-Lot in the institutional district on parcel number 24280. The 23,000 square foot swing space building will provide temporary classroom and office space for students and facility and staff. I would like to remind anybody that wants to participate in tonight's discussion would make sure they sign in. And when it comes time for public involvement, if you would, since we don't have good acoustics in this room, if you would speak loudly and tell us your name and the town that you're from when you want to participate. Are there any communications from the public on any item not on the agenda tonight? Hearing none. Is there a motion to approve the minutes for 1/22/18?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. Are there questions, comments, changes? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. The minutes are approved.
David, I didn't vote because I wasn't here for that meeting.
Okay, we'll go to the business agenda. Yeah, we did that. Yeah, we just did that, didn't we? Yeah.
I thought we just, okay.
Kevin,
Yes.
hand up.
So as the acoustics are somewhat poor in here, can you guys also speak up because we're having difficulty hearing?
We will do
Thank you
that.
very much.
Nobody's had a problem hearing me.
Well, I know that, that's why I wasn't looking.
Okay, the first item on the business agenda, an application by Middlebury College for an amendment to the existing plan unit development and final conditional use approval for the proposed academic swing space building adjacent to Johnson Building at the south end of E-Lot in the institutional district on parcel 24280. The 23,000 square foot swing space building will provide temporary classroom and office space for students, faculty, and staff. The following is the Drb Oath for applicants, interested persons, and those who wish to participate in this hearing. Do you affirm that the evidence and information you are giving in this proceeding is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge and belief? Please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. At this time, I would ask the members of the board if any member has a conflict of interest regarding this application. Also at this time, does any member wish to disclose any ex parte conversations concerning this case? Thank you. And I would ask the applicant to come forward. Okay.
Well, thanks. Yeah. So I'm Tom McGinn. I'm a project manager in the Facility Services Department at Middlebury College. Since we made our application, I think on January 26th, we've been updating the design and adding new information. I want to thank Jen and Dave for keeping up with us and getting the material to the board. Okay? And Jen is good enough to put things up on the screen for us. I'm not sure what order we'll be in, but we'll try to start it again. Okay,
Okay.
right ahead.
Would you like to look at renderings like John might?
If we could look at the material that came with the application, not John's renderings, but the first that starts with this map.
Thank you for your patience. Hang on one sec.
Over here. So this is our package that we made with the application. So the college is proposing to build a 23,000 square foot, two-story building on the south end of the Johnson parking lot. It's behind the Johnson Building and the Wright Theater. It's bordered on the south by St. Mary's Church and the St. Mary's Church parking lot, and then bordered on the east side by Shannon Street, two college houses that are down there, and the parking lot also is bordered by homes on Short Shannon Street. Could you shoot to the next one, Jen? Thank you. So here's a little bit older ortho map of the site, but I'm going to stand because I didn't bring a pointer with me.
There is a pointer there.
The one there?
Yeah. If you stand, yeah, that right.
Yeah, is that good? So
Yeah, that's good.
here is, we call it E-Lot, which is a student, faculty, staff parking lot. Atwater Dining Hall is up here. The Wright Theater is here. The Johnson Arts Building is here. St. Mary's Church is here. Shannon Street here. Short Shannon Street here. Okay? That's how it exists today, pretty much. There's a house that isn't pictured here. This is a college student housing, 7 Shannon Street, I think it is. And then there's the Insight House, which is one of the solar decathlon houses, which is here. There's a white barn here, which we use, the college uses for cold storage for the theater department. Okay? Can you shoot to the next one for me? Thank you. So this is the south end of the parking lot where we propose to put the building. Here's the access road that comes up from Shannon Street into the Johnson parking lot. You enter the building from the north side at grade, or you enter the building and exit the building from this sidewalk, which comes from College Street, comes down behind Sunderland and Johnson into an entry plaza, enter the building here, or enter the building here, both at grade. This is Keith Wagner Associates is our landscape architect, and this is one of their drawings. You can see we've done quite a bit of landscaping here. We've been speaking with the church, St. Mary's Church, Father Luke. We do a little regrading along this area to capture stormwater runoff, bring it down into a series of rain gardens here. And I'll let Brent talk to the stormwater management plan and the rest of the public utilities. Okay. Okay. This is looking from the north at the building. One of the things that have changed is we've been changing the color of the siding, but silver and not red anymore, but sort of a bronze. Gives you an idea. A little closer up of the building. The sidewalk comes down along this way, along this edge of the parking lot. Just a little detail for the roof that we were asked to show, a little eave detail along the roof to sort of break up it a little bit. Here's the main entrance, we'll call it. Again, you come in at grade, some bike racks and the like. This is a view as you come down the path from College Street behind Johnson and Wright. So this is the, I wouldn't call it a secondary entrance, but another entrance to the building. Here we're looking, here's St. Mary's Church is on this side, the parking lot right here. This is the entry road to the church parking lot. And you're in Shannon Street at the base of that church drive, and you're looking up at the building. Another, too small for everybody to read, but it's just our planting plan Shows what kind of trees and shrubs and rain garden material that we'll be putting in. This is the north, so this is the north end of the parking lot. In the earlier, the tennis courts are sitting here.
Sorry.
That's okay. All right. One more. So this parking is current, and our proposal eliminates the tennis courts, and we just take the existing parking and bring it up to add these more spaces here. Here's the property line for the Shannon Street, short Shannon Street houses. Okay.
All of them.
Yeah, next one.
No, I think that was the last one.
Was that the last one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So could you go to the renderings,
You
the
bet.
last package we sent?
Yep.
John is our architect for the project. Ask John to talk about the architecture a little bit.
Okay, and then we'll do the site
And
and
do
stormwater.
the civil design.
So this is the best spot to stand over here.
I think so.
Okay.
Well, I don't know, if you stood on the other side, I wonder if we would hear you better. We could just try it.
You guys hear me now? See?
Yeah.
Okay. So we just need the signal back. There we go. Okay, so as Tom said, we've made a few adjustments and we've developed some more renderings. And what I want to talk to you about is just what I'd like to describe sort of the major components of the architectural design. So to begin with, we are working with what's called a pre-engineered metal building system, which means this building is going to be all the steel structure, the components are going to arrive as a package to the site and get assembled on site onto an existing site cast foundation that will be put in place. And oftentimes, these pre-engineered metal buildings tend to be what you see out in industrial parks and in the sort of sprawling edges of towns. Not always the most attractive buildings to look at, but they're economical, they go up quickly. And our challenge here, what we're trying to do architecturally, is to understand fully the pre-engineered metal building system and its components and get as much as we can out of that system to make something that will look attractive on the Middlebury College campus and to the surrounding community. So we've done a lot of research to understand what's available to us within this basic kit of parts or this system. And one of the things that we're trying to do is to move away from the idea of just a big sort of massive box that's been plopped down onto a site. And so we're using several strategies to try to break down the overall mass and scale of the building. The first major strategy is to use the steel structure and take what is essentially a big box that we're starting with, but then start to carve into it in certain places and remove portions like the whole front entrance here. And Jen, if you could just flip through a couple of these, we'll get to, yeah, you can start to see here how it's recessed, creates a long sort of covered entry, not unlike the field house that was built on campus. And I like to think of it as just a front porch in a sense. And if you keep going, Jen, we'll move around to the secondary entrance, which you can see now this is all this dark bronze color instead of the red, but this is the southwest entrance. So here too, this shell of a building has been carved into and parts have been removed. And so that's a strategy to try to break down the mass, okay? The second strategy, and Jen, maybe you could just go back to that first view at the front. Yeah, that's great. The second strategy is to think about the skin that's available to us, the metal panels that come with these kits, and how we might use those off-the-shelf parts, let's call them, to start to create a sense of hierarchy and scale and break down the building. And so we're working with two different siding systems or panels, and I've actually got samples over there of the real thing. Maybe Brent or Tom could grab them. And the strategy here, this is going to be what we're calling essentially the secondary or minor field of the envelope, which is this dark bronze ribbed panel. And here on the left, and maybe make sure the board can see it also, this silvery gray panel is called a Baton panel system. And the idea here is that the primary field that you see here in the silver gray, which is that panel right there, is predominant, and it picks up on the color scheme, generally speaking, of the stone buildings on campus, and also of the St. Mary's Church nearby. It also happens to have a Baton profile that you can see there that relates to the copper-clad volumes on Johnson Building adjacent to it. So we're trying to pick up on the shadow lines and the profile and the texture and the pattern, the rhythm, the spacing, all these things to tie it into its neighbors and the general campus language. And then this secondary system that I described, which is the dark bronze ribbed, that's going to be, these ribs are going to run horizontally, is the idea, like that, yeah. Whereas the battens run vertically, these guys will run horizontally. Not unlike the courses of shingles and clapboards that you see on some of the houses in the surrounding area. And it's similar to, if you've seen the gable end of the field house at the college, there's parking adjacent to it. It's similar to that panel as well. And this skin here, this darker system, relates to the primary entrances of the building, to the approaches and where you come in and actually enter into the building. So it sort of reinforces this idea of these transition spaces or these porches as I think of them. One more strategy with kind of the overall massing that we're trying to employ to keep the scale of the building down is the roof slope, as you can see, is real shallow. It's only a 1 in 12 roof pitch. And we're doing that to keep the height, the overall height of the building down. So we're at 34.4 at the high end, and then it slopes down to about 28, right at 28 feet on the low end. And the third and final obvious architectural element of a building, I think, is the windows and doors. And so we have really 3 different kinds of windows and doors that we're using in this building, and we're trying to, again, create a hierarchy and some visual interest. So at the ground level, and Jen, maybe you could flip through here, you can see here at the ground level in that dark bronze zone are these big 4-foot by 8-foot windows, and they come down to the ground. And so that's really where pedestrians are. It's where people engage the building, where when you're inside the building, you're looking back out to the exterior. So that happens all around the building in the dark bronze zone. And then the second system is these higher, what we call Clerestory windows, if you're familiar with that term. These happen up in the silver gray zone, and they're up above, higher than typical ceiling level. They're from, I think, 10 to 12 feet up. And they let in daylight up high. You can't really see out of them other than to see the sky, but they let daylight in to the interior spaces. And then there are also these windows that you see here, which we call vision windows, and that's more at the height of a human being. So when you're in your office or your classroom, you can look out and see the surroundings. And then the third and final sort of piece of the scale of the window and door system is these major areas of glass. And Jen, maybe let's do a quick spin around the building if we could. So there's one back here, here at this entrance. If we keep going, you can see it there on the corner. These are located in places where there are main entries, where there are particularly nice views, like here out to the east, to the mountains, and in places where there's an obvious relationship to the site. So to main approaches, to the entry, to views to the exterior, and they correspond to public spaces in the building, like the lobby and the student gathering spaces and meeting spaces. So that's a quick overview. Are we going to do, I guess we're not doing questions. So, okay. So let's look at the rest of the renderings. This is from Short Shannon and Shannon. Right? I'm sorry, this is College Street, and this is Shannon. There's St. Mary's, 248 College. So you can see we've rendered the building in as it would sit in this view. This is Short Shannon and Shannon. There's the drive up into the existing E-lot. So the building really, because the land terraces down from the high ridge on the campus all the way down into town, this building, we've tried to place it into that overall topography so that it's stepping with the massing of the campus and the town. Okay, this is coming up the drive, not quite to the parking lot. That's the barn that Tom described. There's Johnson Building. And I think, is there one more?
No.
Okay, that's it. All right.
Thanks, John.
Good evening. My name is Brent Rakowski. I'm with Otter Creek Engineering. I'm the civil engineer for the project, working with the college in developing this property or this site. I think the first area, just in terms of orientation, as Tom mentioned, this is the northern part of the Johnson lot and the existing kind of the footprint or where the tennis courts are currently. And then here's the southerly extent of the property adjacent to the church, and here's the actual line of the parking lot that's there, and access up off of Shannon Street. So for this project, Otter Creek has developed a plan for water and sewer service, so they will both be municipal connections to the town system. The water will be connected to an existing water line that runs along Shannon Street. A new 8-inch water service will be run up the service drive and then turn, and Jen, if you could move to the next, keep going. No, I don't know if you have a proposed plan. Oh, there you go. So this is a proposed utility plan. So as I mentioned, we will be tying onto the town's municipal water system right along Shannon Street and running a new service line up to feed the building. And this will come into the new building here at the northern end. In terms of a reference, it'd be good to just keep in mind that here's a loading dock area that goes to the Johnson building, and an existing tree here, an existing tree there. Just in terms of scale and where that new building sits in relation to the existing parking lot. Part of what we are doing from the stormwater side of things is there will be some rerouting of existing drainage that's coming down from the uphill portion of the site, and that will be picked up and collected in the existing system, but it gets rerouted and then will tie in to the town's collection system. From the building, the rooftop has a slope that is a uniform slope. Everything's draining to the south. Falling off that rooftop, it'll land onto what's called a stone drip edge. And within that stone drip edge, there will be an under drain pipe. So to collect the drainage, once water falls down onto the stone, it gets into this under drain piping, and that under drain piping will route it to a stormwater treatment area. The intent of that stormwater treatment area is to filter the runoff. Any pollutants that are in the runoff will filter through a planting. They call it a planting bed section. So it's a mixture of compost, soil, sand, and below that will be another under drain, which will then pick up that runoff that has been filtered and route that around the building, and then again tying back into the town's collection system. Larger events will be temporarily detained within this pond. I don't want to say pond; it's a wrong idea. It will allow for some storage capacity in there. So larger storm events will be captured and detained for a little bit, and then released into the town system. So that's what's happening for stormwater and water to serve the building. Sewer will come out of the mechanical room and tie into an existing sewer line that then runs down the hill back to the town system. Jen, if you can go to the north side of the lot, or maybe the back a little bit. The C4, I think it is. One back, one more. 3, yeah. So, as I mentioned, the existing tennis courts on the north side of the Johnson lot extend roughly to this location here. They will be removed, and that area will actually be converted back into grass. The existing parking lot that ends here will be extended to the north. This area will be this area will be regraded slightly to provide a uniform slope, so that runoff that lands on here will travel across the parking lot. And what we will be doing is installing a stone diaphragm along the edge of this parking lot to pick up runoff that's coming off the parking lot. And within that stone diaphragm is similarly is an under drain, which will pick up water that filters down through the stone. That under drain will daylight to an existing culvert that's just to the north of the site and into a natural drainage way that's along that runs down towards Waybridge Street. As part of our work for the project, we are required to obtain a stormwater discharge permit from the state. So it's what similarly is, or what some people refer to as an operational permit. And there will also be a construction general permit. So the construction general permit is for disturbance during construction. So anytime you're ripping up and exposing earth with more than an acre of disturbance, you're required to obtain a construction general permit. So we will be doing that. We're slightly above that level, but we will be getting one of those along with the operational permit. And with our water and sewer improvements, we will be doing what's water wastewater permit through the state. And those are both municipal connections, as I mentioned. And I think that's all I had.
Brett, while you're right
Sure.
there, during construction, could you show us what amount of parking will be continued to be used for the college?
I can talk.
Okay.
So our logistics plan for construction would be to take the entire south end, which is what you see here. Yeah, this,
We're gonna step to the side, one side.
Sorry.
the other.
I'll sit.
all right.
I can get back up.
This part of the lot will be closed during the construction period.
Okay.
And if you go to the conversion to parking would be the first thing we would do. So we would like to, if we get all of our permits in hand, is to start construction following commencement. So right around June 2018. Do this work first while the language schools are in session. And when we start for the fall term in 18, this parking lot conversion work will be done.
Okay. Other questions from the board at this time?
Yeah, I was just, you started talking about collection,
Yes.
the difference between stormwater collection and sewer collection. You kept referring to the town's collection system.
Yes.
Stormwater is not going into our sewer system.
That's
It's going in,
correct.
okay.
It is not going into the sewer.
You referred to the town's collection system. And
Oftentimes, I'm sorry, I'm.
No, that's
somewhat
okay.
engineering speak, they're both referred to as sewer.
Yeah.
You're referring to a town stormwater system that collects the stormwater and takes it to a separate outfall, right?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
correct. Yeah, the town actually has existing drainage,
Yes.
stormwater collection system along Shannon Street, Short Shannon Street that runs down towards Waybridge Street and then discharges into the natural
Right.
ravine that's along Waybridge Street and then gets to Otter Creek.
Is there fire protection hydrant back there?
There is actually an existing hydrant down on Shannon Street.
Short
Yeah, is it Short Shannon?
I'm trying to find something that works here, sorry.
On Shannon.
What about the aerial photo?
But won't the building have pumper connections?
Yes, the building will have a fire department connection on the
Right.
building.
Yes.
And I know Chief Shaw has looked at the plan, and I can't recall what he said about a hydrant connection, Brent.
I believe the hydrants, the existing hydrants, I believe that's it right there in the picture.
Yes, that's it. That's where it's located.
And we will be running, and the intent is to have the building sprinkled.
Right.
So that there will be a sprinkler line. The sizing of that water service that comes up from Shannon Street will be sufficient, to allow for sprinkling of the building.
I think in the,
In,
go ahead, dude.
The reason I asked is I saw that comment in there, and I wasn't at the meeting with him. Does an FTC at the building address the concern that Chief Shaw raised?
I think he wants to add a hydrant
He
at
does.
the top of the drive.
His comments and what we have is that possibly an island or hydrant in one of the islands in front of the building.
I spoke with him last week, and he indicated that.
And then my question in general is, would that hydrant be, if it was to go there, would that be able to be served by the 8-inch water line that's being brought up from Shannon Street?
I would say that yes, if there's a request for a hydrant there, that line
That
is
capacity's
sufficient.
there within that pipe?
One other point I would like to make that you just brought up that I hadn't mentioned is that just this past, I think it was just this past week, we had done some soil testing up on the site. So this is a progression of the design as we work through these design phases. And we did some testing up along the proposed route of the water line, also in the footprint of the building. You can see in some of these locations, there's obviously you can't read it, but there's a little circle, darkened circle with a number designation next to it. And those indicate locations where we did soil probes and soil borings. What we found was that there was a presence of ledge in the area. It's inconsistent. It's very similar to what we find in Middlebury. You know, you'll have ledge that's 2 to 3 feet deep in locations, and then 20 feet off to the side, you won't find any ledge. So we are anticipating that we will likely have to blast to put that water line into depth.
Regarding that, is it still a practice to do pre-blast surveys?
Oh, yes.
Adjacent houses and?
Yes, so as part of that, part of the state permitting, we will be going through Act 250 as well. The Act 250 has requirements, or I should say Agency Natural Resources has recommendations for blasting that include the pre and post blast surveys. So they will do an assessment before any of the work is done, come back afterwards, do that same assessment. That is incorporated into the documents that we have that the contractors will be using.
Ann, you had?
I have a couple of questions, probably for Mr. McGann. Does the college anticipate replacing those tennis courts elsewhere during this period of temporary?
No, we don't. Those are purely recreational tennis courts.
Okay. And what about the computer science department when the new academic building, which isn't before us obviously, is completed? Will the computer science department be relocating elsewhere on campus from this temporary building?
We're working through that scenario. So the purpose of the building is to relocate the Department of Computer Science from Bicentennial Hall to allow us to expand the remaining programs that are in Bi Hall. And at the same time, so they'll be on the second floor of the building.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, the first floor of the building will, we will move in a sequence we haven't determined finally yet. The occupants of Monroe, which is an academic building on campus, the occupants of Warner, which is another academic building on campus, the residents of Adirondack House, which is up by Adirondack Circle on College Street. It's the career services building. As we renovate those buildings, at the same time, we're planning and programming and fundraising and designing for a new academic building, okay, which will take probably at a minimum 3 to 5 years before we settle on that and then build the building. At that time, we will have, when that's finished, the new building is finished, we'll have a renovated Warner, we'll have a renovated Monroe, we'll have a new academic building, we'll have occupied the space in Bicentennial Hall that computer science vacated, and we will, and we're working on it now on the planning process as to who goes where. What departments fits best in what building? What departments should be side by side in one building? Okay, so I can't. But computer science will relocate from the interim temporary building. But whether that's to the new building,
Right.
or to a renovated Monroe, or to a renovated Warner, I can't say yet.
Well, the question really goes to the concerns that I think some of the members of the public have as to the nature of temporary. And given the ongoing growth of the college, I suppose there might be some question as to whether the building we don't know about yet will be large enough to accommodate everything, the computer science department plus whatever other growth there will be during that period.
So when we look at the growth projections, which we don't have any plans to grow the student body any more than it is now, okay? But the faculty and staff will probably grow. The faculty certainly, as students begin to major, which is the problem that we have in Bicentennial Hall, okay? Increasing enrollments in the science programs mean larger classes. We try to maintain a faculty-student ratio that's something around 12 to 1. And as those enrollments increase, we need to hire new faculty to accommodate them. And the science faculty, which we have in Bicentennial Hall, is a little different from the rest of the faculty because they require labs and research labs. They don't just need an office and a general purpose classroom, they're specialized. Okay? So we've projected a 10 to 12 year lifespan for this building. And we've designed it in a way and at a cost, projected cost, that does not say brand new Middlebury College academic building, okay? We're looking at something on the order of $200 a square foot rather than $500 a square foot, which certainly a new academic building in the center of campus someplace, that's what it will cost.
Thank you. I don't know that any of the three of you here can address this point, but on the landscaping plan and on the elevation from the south, looking from the southeast, the tree that's there right now that shows on the schematic, I'm wondering if that's actually the height of that tree right now. You went past it, Jen. Go back again. That tree there. And I'm also wondering, yes, that's the existing tree, right?
The tree's not there.
I'm not sure, I think that's a new tree.
That's a drawing, there's no
Yeah.
tree there.
I don't think we have the.
I didn't see it when I went by it.
I don't think so.
There are some existing trees in that area.
There are some
roughly
trees
that
there,
height,
but
I believe that's in-
Well, I'm wondering whether there's any possibility of,
These are
and
here.
maybe there isn't room for it, and maybe the soil's the wrong stuff, I don't know, but incorporating some larger evergreens, say, to break up that corner a little more.
That might be a question for the landscape
Yeah,
architect, but we
but
can
sure,
certainly
we can
answer it.
certainly
I mean,
look
I
at it.
can tell you that the renderings show the actual species.
Yes, I looked at
Plants,
that,
yeah.
and they're all
at the appropriate
deciduous.
heights. And,
Right.
that was reviewed by the landscape architect, but we did.
And some of those in that hedge may be of the sort that will grow taller over time, but I'm more interested in a more immediate screening.
Okay.
Other questions from the board at this time?
Yeah, I have a question. John or Tom, what's programmatically, what's happening on that corner of the building that we were just looking at with the tree? That's not a service, is there trash for the building or service dock?
There isn't a loading dock. Typically, how we handle the trash for an academic building like this is the custodial services collects the trash, puts it out in front of the building.
Right.
And our custodial services recycling truck comes by and picks it up off the curb.
So is it a big classroom? I see a big volume on that corner.
That's on the ground floor you're
Yeah.
asking about? Right
Yeah.
in the corner. So that ground floor is actually a bit more of an open office and meeting space
I see.
plan currently.
Okay.
It's flexible, it'll change over time.
Right.
The idea is that that corner can look out into this rain garden area and landscaping. And I think right now it's currently designated to be a sort of group meeting space for the offices at that floor.
Okay, thanks.
Are you, excuse me, are you anticipating any volume of foot traffic, say, coming from College Street, walking down Shannon Street and then maybe up your access road there, or?
Not cutting across and coming down Shannon Street any more than the students do right now.
Yeah.
Okay, there is a footpath if you come down behind, let me point. Go back one if you would, for me, please, John. You had it right there. One more. So, nope, go back one more. I'm
Sorry.
sorry. I'm sorry.
The other way.
Okay.
Right.
So,
This is harrowing.
this College Street's out here, and the students tend to come down this way and then cut through a gap in the trees at the top of the St. Mary's parking lot, down the St. Mary's Drive, across Shannon Street, through the elementary school parking lot, and there's a cow path, for lack of a better term, behind the elementary school leading down to town. But we don't, this will be a destination for students, okay? So yes, we will have students coming to this building from College Street, and we'll have students coming down the other way, from Chateau and Bicentennial Hall and that way. We don't see, if I got your question, increased pedestrian traffic going beyond the building.
Okay. Well, I was by there today, and there were a couple of students that were actually, walking alongside the road, and they had, I believe they had come down your access road onto Shannon Street and walking south.
Towards town.
Towards town. I don't know if they went behind St. Mary's School, the old St. Mary's School, or if they went on out that street. There's a number of times I've been through there when there were students trying to cross where there is no sidewalk on the north end of the school into the student residence there, whatever. My thought was, would it be possible to extend the sidewalk on the northern side of the driveway of St. Mary's more to the north, so if students were going up that access road or to the two buildings there, that they would use the sidewalk rather than walk in the road. Just a point of observation.
We can look at it.
Okay.
We'll look at it.
Alright.
So the north side of the access drive, I see the students
On the
do this thing.
east side of Shannon,
East side
but
of
go
Shannon.
north of St. Mary's. So the St. Mary's sidewalk ends at the northern egress or whatever paved, and it stops there. If a sidewalk were to begin at that northernmost point and then go north, whatever distance, maybe to the point where Shannon and Short Shannon intersect, that might help out pedestrian traffic.
Is that St. Mary's land we're talking about?
I do
Just
not
wanna
know.
be clear.
Is he
I
talking
think it is.
From
Right where the
here,
hydrant is, below,
Down
yeah,
there?
down,
yeah.
right in there. So if you're go left there, right in that area, along the Shannon Street there. That's just a sidewalk and can end there, and then students can go wherever. It may be
believe
St.
that-
Mary's,
St. Mary's,
it might be St. Mary's property. I do not know.
I think this is all St. Mary's.
yeah.
Yeah. Just,
I'll look
got
at
that
it
up
with
right.
John and Brett.
Ann?
Can one of you explain how this project actually reduces the amount of impervious surface overall that the college has? That was one of the claims made in some of this paperwork.
I'll start and then Brent can correct me. So the building is going on a parking lot, which is already impervious surface.
Right.
The tennis courts are also impervious surface. So by extending the parking up straight across the already impervious surface and eliminating the lower tennis court, almost all of it, I mean, basically, we're pretty close to no new impervious surface.
I see.
Perhaps a little bit less.
Well, that's what I thought, but on the plan, there was nothing stated about the grass on that half of the tennis court, and I appreciate you offered testimony as to that.
No, the project has to go through Act 250 review, right?
Okay.
As part of Act 250 review, it has to go through the Stormwater Division. So the Stormwater Division, has to sign off on what we're proposing, or add conditions to the Act 250 permit if they see that. I don't know the answer yet. We need to have a stormwater permit from the Stormwater Management Division, because we have to go through Act 250 and get a permit, and they'll review that the same way Historic Preservation reviews the plan, right? So it's the part of the Act 250 permit.
Okay,
But
thank
the
you.
rain garden is gonna filter a lot of the soil that was never filtered before.
That's correct.
So there's a plus to having the rain garden taken care of. That makes a big difference.
Right, and with the under drains in the rain garden and a catch basin, simple term, right, Brent? For the big event, for the big rain event, we think we'll do better. And by adding the, I call it a French drain along the tennis court where there is none right now, that should help things out for people downslope a little bit as well.
Okay, just for the record, could you go through the existing parking that you have now and the parking that you will end up with as far as numbers?
Right.
And then also, could you discuss what amount of traffic could be result from this, whether it be an increase or decrease?
This is one of the later items. Did we get this up? Do we have it here, but the board has it? Just so
I think the letters.
Yeah, parking lot.
okay. So this is one of those late items that we got to Jen once we started talking about the parking, and this is what we sent you. So currently, the entire lot has 213 spaces in it, right? Right now, it has 79 faculty staff, it has 115 student spaces, it has 10 commuter spaces, it has 2 service vehicle spaces, and it has 7 ADA spaces. When we finish, we will have a total of 189 spaces, so a little bit less, all right? Public Safety, or Department of Public Safety, designates our parking lots. And I sent you, just FYI for your information. If you put it on your computer and blow it up, you can read it a little bit better. And you can see the different parking areas the college has and what they're designated. Faculty, staff, first-year students, second-year students, junior, senior students, okay? So Public Safety manages the designation of the parking lots, all right? So we did a little hypothetical to say to ourselves, and I work with Public Safety on this, we know that, excuse me, we have 14 computer science faculty who are going to be in this building. They currently park up at By Hall in the lot up there. So we anticipate that for those 14 faculty who drive their own car and park their own car, we'll take the worst case, okay? Because some faculty walk, some faculty ride their bike, some faculty drive with a carpool, some faculty come with their partner or spouse. So it's not really a one-for-one situation, okay? And the faculty are not there every single day of the school term, okay? If they have a Tuesday, Thursday class, they come in for a Tuesday, Thursday class, come in for their office hours. There are lots of places for the faculty to park. So hypothetically, we said 14 computer science faculty. There are 48 faculty in Monroe, okay? So when we close Monroe for renovations and we swing over the 48 faculty to the swing space, hypothetically, you could have 48 plus 14 additional faculty who could be driving their own car by themselves every day of the week and parking in this parking lot. Will that be the case? Probably not. Is it the worst-case scenario? Yes, it is, okay? So we work with public safety, and we said, for now, hypothetically, we had 79 faculty staff spaces. Let's make it 100, okay? And when the building opens, let's see what sort of pressures we have on the space. We're not adding new faculty staff for this project. We're not adding new students for this project. Currently, everybody is parking someplace on campus. Everybody has a sticker, okay? So hypothetically, yeah, maybe the 48 plus 14 could come in their own car and park. Student spaces will decrease from 115 to 77. Public safety says we have excess capacity in the Ridgeline parking lot, which we expanded 2 years ago when we got rid of the modular homes. And we have capacity in the CFA parking lot as well. Student parking stickers fluctuate term to term, year to year, as the FEBs come in and the FEBs leave, as students go on leave. Again, the point I want to make is we have enough parking on campus. All the students are parking someplace right now. They'll park in another lot, okay? The commuter spaces, since we reduced the number of students living off campus when we built the Ridgeline housing, we have a lot less pressure on our commuter spaces. So commuter spaces are student commuter, okay? So if a student is renting a house with their friends in Cornwall and they want a parking sticker, public safety on a case-by-case basis evaluates how far away they are and says, okay, we'll give you a commuter sticker, okay? There's a commuter lot up in By Hall, which is about 15 spaces, which is empty half the time. This one down here in the E lot, which is the Johnson lot, sometimes it's full, sometimes it isn't. But we think safely we can reduce that number by 5 and still have some room. Service vehicle spaces are unused, basically. We don't typically, in E lot, when a service vehicle comes, that's a facility services service vehicle. They park in the Johnson Loading Dock Road, or they're driving the little Gators or the little white vans, and they come down Chateau Road and they park in front of the building because they're working in Chateau, or they're working in Johnson, or they're working in Wright. So overall, a decrease in spaces from 213 to 189. Potentially, perhaps, an increase in the number of faculty driving up the access road to E-Lot and parking in E-Lot to teach, to go to work, to have their office hours in the new building. Go ahead, Don.
So, as I drive by the Carborough building on Exchange Street, how many employees are parking down there every day? It's full,
Full?
along with Marble Works. So those are spaces that you didn't have 5 years ago, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
So,
We have, it's the same thing, I work in this, parking is a complicated thing, and it changes all the time. Again, we're not adding incremental
right.
pressure. People are parking someplace already. The people in Monroe and Warner don't have a dedicated parking lot, the way this building, I don't want to call it dedicated, but approximate parking lot. The faculty who teach in Monroe and Warner park on College Street. They park on Old Chapel Road. They park down by the tennis courts. There are enough spaces to accommodate everybody. If a faculty, or a student for that matter, pulls up into E-Lot and wants to park, and there aren't any spaces, they head out and they go park on Old Chapel Road, or they park on College Street, or they park by the tennis courts, or they park at By Hall. Same thing happens in the service building, which is where I park. Since we moved some service building functions out to Marble Works, it's easy to park in the service building now, okay? As long as you get there before 8 o'clock in the morning. But if you get there after 8, you gotta go find a parking spot, okay? We're not able to provide approximate parking for everybody next to the building they work in. It's impossible. We can't do it, you know? But we have enough parking to accommodate everybody who works or attends as a student at the college. You know, you squeeze it and it bulges out someplace else, and that's the way it is. So we're confident that, A, we have enough parking, and we really don't believe that this will lead to an increase day-to-day, people driving up the service road into E-Lot and back out at the end of the day. Negligible, if at all.
Now, the college has some use of St. Mary's lot, don't they?
Yes, I
Limited
believe-
basis.
On, I believe it's 20 spaces that we lease from St. Mary's.
Is that,
On a Monday through Friday schedule, subject to no parking in the event of a funeral or a wedding or,
is that primarily faculty
Yes.
parking there?
faculty, staff.
Faculty staff?
Yeah, we don't differentiate. It's faculty,
Yeah,
staff,
yeah.
or students.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have one quick question. When the building will be compliant with state commercial energy code, or will it be LEED or anything like that?
No, we're not contemplating LEED at the moment,
Okay.
but it will be compliant with state energy code, yes. And we looked at how we plan to heat and cool the building. And early on, we thought that we would go all electric and use a heat pump system. And we have concerns about reliability on the heat pump system during low temperatures on the heating side. Down at the Ridgeline project, in the Ridgeline View Suite building, the larger building down there, we've had issues over this past winter with reliability at low temperatures. So the way that we plan to heat the building now is to run a gas line up at the same time we do the water line work from Vermont Gas. Vermont Gas is on Shannon Street. And then cool the building with a separate system where the air handlers will be in the attic of the building. And what will be outside, there'll be one condenser outside the building on the south side, the air conditioning side.
Ann?
In connection with the windows for the view looking east, in the winter months, I assume there will be people in that upstairs space when it's dark outside. Do you plan any mitigation of light transfer? Because the houses on Shannon Street right now, I assume, can see the lights in the parking lot. I haven't been along there at night time, but the windows are going to be higher than those lights and possibly brighter given the need to have bright lights inside working spaces. I'm just wondering if any thought's been given to that.
So the way the second floor is laid out right now, and it's classrooms and offices, right? So the offices and the classroom, well, there might be some evening classes. Let me try to answer your question. Have we discussed any mitigation for light bleed from the building on the second floor? No, we have not. Okay. Will the building be occupied heavily during the nighttime hours? No, it will not. Okay.
The east half of that floor, at the upper floor, is faculty offices, and the space that's behind the large windows that you see there is a common meeting area that the offices surround. I suspect that most of those faculty will be gone at the end of the day. There is a classroom and 2 research labs in that eastern half of the building as well, but those are in the inner core, and they're fully enclosed with walls.
I assume there'll be cleaning services operational outside of classroom and faculty hours, though.
Custodial services,
Yes.
typically, yes. Early in the morning is when their shift starts, their cleaning service.
Gary?
Have you thought of, discussed the mitigation from noise from the air handlers? as would apply to the neighbors?
I don't believe that the air handlers that are located inside the building, so they're under the roof, they're inside the attic, I don't believe that there'll be any noise transfer for
They are
that.
going to be inside.
They'll be inside. There will be a condenser outside, an air conditioning condenser. So during the cooling season, that will run, okay? And we haven't selected the model yet, but we will certainly be going for something that's low noise. I can't say right now, Gary.
Okay.
But we installed one outside the back of Forest Hall when we renovated Forest in 2011 outdoors. And this is just anecdotal, but I'll pass it along. I'm tremendously surprised at how quiet the new technology is. It's not a noisy unit. But we can provide more information on that once we have it.
Thank you.
Get the dB levels and such. Yeah.
Is there a particular reason why the HVAC pad was located where it's shown on the site plan as opposed to further towards Cornwall, I guess?
To the west.
To the west.
Yes.
Mainly because that's where and Brent maybe can speak to this a little bit too, that's where the stormwater filtration rain garden area, it gets wider as it goes to the east. So we wanted to make sure there was ample room to have the pad to place the unit and then have good plantings and for screening around the unit. As it moves west, it pinches down into a wedge and it starts to get a bit tight. That was the main reason.
What is that? I'm on C4. C4 is the one with the new proposed building, that one. What? What is this space here? This.
So that's the treatment, the filtration.
Well, there's actually an outdoor patio area, a seating area.
Right,
That's a component of that, and then just to the east there, you're seeing some, it almost looks like eyes, I guess. Those are the treatment.
This?
Well, that is a portion of the patio,
Okay.
and then, so, this is actually an outdoor seating area,
Right,
padding,
right.
and this is just I guess a leg of it. I'm not the landscape designer, so excuse me, but just another seating area that's somewhat a little more remote. And then these are right now, as we're working through the design, the treatment areas.
Other questions from the board at this time? Staff, anything that you want
There's just a couple things I wanted to, this may, it applies a little bit to the master plan, but we're not gonna compromise that green reserve area at all. That's identified in the 2008 master plan. I mean, it doesn't appear, I just wanted to confirm.
That's correct.
And, and the setback from the residential area where you're converting a tennis court.
Right.
I believe we talked about 100 foot.
Correct.
And that complies
So
with that 100.
that does, yes, it does. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So you have the property line, short Shannon Street houses, and then there's 100-foot buffer between that property line and development.
In the residential.
have we talked about exterior lighting plan at all?
Another late thing that I just sent to Dave and Jen was we did a photometric plan of the parking lot. The building, in the recessed canopies, In the ceiling of those canopies, there'll be recessed lighting to light up the entries. No other exterior mounted lights on the building.
Okay.
On the photometric plan, what we're doing is just reusing light fixtures that were taken down for the construction of the building and extending them. Oh, good, you have it up. Reusing those at the tennis court
Okay.
side.
So what we can't see here is that each one of these maroon, they're a figure with a lighting level.
Correct. So the hatched part of the plan we gave you, the edges of the hatching represent where the foot candles go down to 0. Okay? So give you an indication that there won't be any bleed beyond those, beyond the hatch area. And the engineer designed it to the town standards for lighting and pole heights and foot candles and et cetera.
And security for the students.
And security for anybody who's going out to their vehicle in that parking lot. It meets the standard, yes.
Just one other thing. If I understood you, what you said is you suspect that the amount of traffic will not be increased. This building will not increase the amount of traffic?
To a noticeable amount.
Okay.
That is my belief, yes.
Okay. I'm going to open up to the public now, but I just want to make clear that there's really two parts to this application. One is this building. The other is approval of the master plan update. And we have yet to discuss that, but what I want to do is have the public response from the building aspect first. Once we have that, then we will go into the master plan update. And then there'll be an additional period after that for public involvement on that process.
Okay.
So at this point, I'd open it up for public comment. Please indicate your name and the town that you are coming from. Yes.
Wendy Warren, Middlebury. I live on Shannon Street, directly across from the building. There's multiple topics that I'd like to talk about tonight. So can we start with stormwater management?
Sure.
Jen, can you just bring up that picture, it's the color picture, but it's of Shannon facing,
That's not applicable.
Oh, yes.
not that one. Okay, I'm to stand up.
Would you please stand to the side and use the pointer?
Okay, so, my house is right about here. And currently on Shannon Street, there are only 2 storm drains, which are at the bottom of the entry to your parking lot, either side of the parking lot, correct? And currently, one of them is completely buried in snow. So during this past winter, when we've had 2 heavy rainfalls, that water just flies down the street and then runs this way and then into my driveway. So those storm drains are not kept clear by the town. This is a steep slope, and this roof is going to be dumping 13,000 square feet of water onto that steep slope, which is very close to this steep driveway. It doesn't look steep in this picture, but anyone can drive onto Shannon and see how steep it is. So all that water is going to fly off that roof, down that slope, down that road, no storm drains, into my driveway, into my neighbor's driveway, into our basements. Currently, Short Shannon Street, which I don't know if we have a picture of it, everyone, I believe, on Short Shannon has a water issue in their basement right now because the stormwater management of the current parking lot, which has rain gardens and little catch basins, does not work. The water runs down the parking lot and into all these people's basements. And then they have to pump their water onto the street which freezes. It's a nightmare. It's a sheet of ice. Go down there. And then Hannah here lives across the street, so their water gets pumped out onto the street, and then it runs into her basement. And then it's going further down the hill. So the rain garden does not work when the ground is frozen. Terry Purcell at the state admitted that to me on the phone on Friday. Rain gardens do not work in the winter. 6 months of the year, the ground is frozen. So that is not a good plan. And rain gardens really don't work as a catch basin filtration system for a lot of water, which is what's going to be produced by that huge roof. So whatever plan you come up with, it has to be much better than it is now. Even what you're talking about building is not going to work with it being on a steep slope. The water is just naturally going to run downhill. And it's dangerous.
How much water is coming off of St. Mary's parking lot as we speak now onto that road?
While the snow's melting?
Isn't that a significant amount of water already coming off from St. Mary's
Yes,
parking lot?
yes it is, because there are no storm drains there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a river, especially if it rains in the winter, which it has been doing, and it probably will continue to do year after year. So, let's see, what else did I have? Oh, the other thing that I found problematic was in the original proposal, I didn't get any of your updates, but I did call the state on Friday because I was concerned about the stormwater management, and I spoke to Terry Purcell, and he said that, because you stated that you did not need a stormwater permit in your application, and he called Brett, and Brett, in conversation, agreed that, yes, indeed, you do need one. So I'm not saying that you did that on purpose, but it's very misleading to say that you don't need that in an application when in fact you do. The other problem I have with your design, Brett, is the drip edge. Now, if it's a light rain, water will fall into that drip edge, but if it's a heavy rain, it's going to shoot past that drip edge. It's not going to be caught by that. And there's a lot of times where we have heavy rain, especially on a 13,000 square foot roof. This building is 9,400 square feet. Imagine the size of this roof with water cascading off of it. This is a huge building. I guess that is all I have for stormwater.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes.
Hannah Magoon, I live on Short Shannon. I get all the runoff from everybody. But I have a few questions. One of you said that you were going to convert the tennis courts into grass. But the other one said you were going to convert it to parking. So how does that work?
Let me show you how.
So here's the existing parking, okay?
Yeah.
Like this. So what we're proposing is to run the parking straight across like that, straight across like that. So this portion of this lower tennis court will be converted back to grass. Not quite half, a little less than half. This portion will be converted to parking.
Okay, so then underneath for the stormwater runoff along that parking past the tennis courts, you say it goes out to
Right, well, at the
place
moment,
that goes down to Weybridge Street?
yeah, the drainage here just sheets off this parking, sheets
Right.
off the tennis courts. So what we're proposing is along this edge of the parking lot, there's a stormwater diaphragm, French drain, okay?
That doesn't work very well, I can tell
Stone
you.
line ditch. So we're going to extend that one up and into a waterway that's up here.
Okay.
I understand what you're saying. This area here is pretty sloped, and it's pretty ledgy, and the soils are very poor there. And I can imagine that any sort of runoff or drainage in this area has nowhere to go but down toward
Right.
Short Shannon Street.
So,
I think this will improve it. Okay? I think it'll make it a little better. It certainly won't make it worse.
is no storm drain along Short Shannon at all. And I have a curb all along the east side of Short Shannon. So all the water that comes down from the hill hits the curb and then goes right across my driveway. And it's supposed to go out to a field behind Peter Jetty's, the end street, the house at the end. But since the ground is frozen, it all goes into my garage. I had 8 inches of water in the garage the other day. And I don't want to do this all the time. Something has to be done for the runoff, because it comes down to the houses that are there into their basement, and they don't have any place to get rid of it, so they pump it out onto the street. And that's the problem.
Yes.
My name is Joan Lynch. I live in Cornwall. And with the stormwater management, in support of what Wendy was saying in terms of the volume of water that's coming off that roof, if it's approximately 13,000 square feet worth of roof on a pitch, 12-to-1, that's just about 8,000 gallons of water in a 1-inch rainfall. So that's a lot of water to shoot down into a drip edge, which may or may not collect it depending on the severity of the storm. So it seems to me, instead of having that huge volume of water coming down all at once, and in wintertime, the rain garden isn't going to absorb it, like you said. But if you had a collection system on top of the roof, gutter, if you will, or something a little bit more today's date, since you're going to have piping anyway that's going to receive the water in the ground under the drip edge and under the rain gardens, you can pipe that water to go right down into that draining system and go out to the catch system that the town has, wherever that may be, whether or not it does or does not work. So it sounds like you've got a problem with your drainage for the town, and if you've got clogged drains or whatever it is. But collecting the water off the roof, I think, is really more of a way to go to eliminate that volume of water coming off in the rainstorm.
Brett?
Can I respond? I'm sorry, I would have responded earlier. I didn't realize it was kind of a back and forth. So, a couple things. I appreciate the points you made. I think there's some legitimacy to some of those. I converse daily with the stormwater section. I do a lot of what I do is stormwater work through the state. I actually helped develop design examples that the state currently uses. They just came out with the regulations, so I was part of developing those examples, and I'm very familiar with how that works. In the winter, rain gardens don't work. You also don't get the amount of runoff that you would in the summertime. Snow freezes, everything freezes in the winter, so you don't get that same peak of runoff that you would.
Except for the rain, it's happened 3 times this winter.
I would agree. The snow tends to absorb that quite a bit. The snow acts as a sponge. If it's coming off the rooftop, that stone drip edge is actually I believe right now we have it 4 feet wide. If it is in fact cascading across that and does happen to fly out 4 feet, it will ultimately land in the rain garden area, and the intent is that it does not run immediately down the slope. It does get captured by the rain garden. To your point, these rain gardens, as I mentioned, they do have some capacity within them. So if it is frozen, if there is snow there, what isn't trapped in the snow, there is a little bit of storage that happens there. But each but the rain gardens itself will have an overflow to it. So water that doesn't filter down through, that doesn't get through this plant media, will enter into those overflows. So the intent is that is the backup, so it's not running down the hill. It will ultimately go to the town system. How that functions, the best we can do is, I guess, talk to the town and ask that gets cleaned up.
Is the overflow a surface drain?
The overflow is a surface drain.
Okay.
It will actually, it's a beehive structure,
Yeah.
so it'll sit roughly 6 inches above the planting bed, so that the water will give it a chance to fill up 6 inches and store that. And what doesn't filter down through ultimately would overflow into that beehive, which is just a pipe flipped on end, if you will, with a small grate on it.
And that's connected to the.
And that's all
system.
connected to the under drain system that then goes to the town's collection system.
So the underground system being the storm sewer system?
That's correct, the storm sewer, yes.
And then it's gonna go down Shannon Street, down
Yes,
across Waybridge, is that how it?
that's correct, yes.
Yeah.
So the town, in essence, would have to put more storm drains in on Shannon Street that worked and maintain them for us to be safe on our street and not have water in our basement caused by impervious surface that the college is
Well,
producing.
one point that I'd like to make is that, in terms of the impervious that's currently out there, we are, if not reducing it, almost keeping it exactly the same. Okay, so on the north part of the property, the tennis courts, and what we're converting to parking is actually a reduction. There's actually less impervious area up there. Okay, as you work our way down south, again, this is a work in progress that we're actually refining the design as we go along, and there's no question that we are required to obtain a stormwater permit. I'm not debating that point, but what we will be doing is actually providing treatment to an area that currently doesn't have any treatment. Okay, so the water coming off the tennis courts, it just flows right off the tennis courts and it's coming down the hillside. We are intending to address that by putting in the diaphragm. Now that's routing water to the north and away from the property owners that are to the east. The parking lot to the south. There's a rooftop and a big building going in, that's not a question. What's happening to the existing parking lot now is it currently just flows right down off the hillside in some cases, like you said, and it's frozen, there's snowbanks there, it's preventing water from going into the collection system. That's currently happening. What we are doing, though, is with this building, we're giving it a place to go. We're directing it to a treatment system, providing treatment for a parking lot or a rooftop that currently doesn't have any treatment in terms of filtering and getting pollutants out of the runoff. And then also providing some type of capacity for that water to be slowed down. Oftentimes what happens with a collection system like the town's is you have a very quick rainfall event. We've experienced these a lot lately, where over the course of 15 minutes it'll rain an inch. And what happens is that these events with no retention, no storage, that water goes right into the stormwater collection system, and then it gets overwhelmed and it comes out of the ground, it goes into folks' backyard. And what we're trying to do is give that a little capacity to slow the water down, so that when you get these big events, it's slowing things down.
So you're designing the stormwater management plan for a big event, not
The
for...
stormwater management, what we are doing is we are designing it in accordance with the requirements of the state rules. A big event, the first part that we're doing is 90% of all rainfall events. That's a 1-inch storm. So 90% of any time it rains, you have a 1-inch storm. We're managing that.
And that's 8,000 gallons of water.
I'm not sure what the calculation is. I haven't done. We're still working.
That's a lot of water.
We're still working through that. But the system that we're designing the system that we're designing will accommodate the 1-inch storm. Whether or not that's the 8,000.
It is.
Okay, thank you.
John?
All right.
I just, obviously, I'm not in the public, but a clarification question. Brent?
Yes, sir.
So, on that parking, parking lot, as you come up Shannon and you go to the right, there's a, let's call it the French drain, the perimeter
Yep.
drain that's there now, over to the tennis court, and then there's nothing. That perimeter drain that's there now, does that flow back south and then come down Shannon?
I believe so, yes.
But what you're gonna do is carry that
Cent-
further to the north and connect it in, so really you'll have
Correct.
two accesses for it to exit, both to the south and to the north. So it is gonna help it, because it'll carry through all the way across.
The intent is we wanted to keep it separate from what's happening there.
Sure.
You know, we don't, I personally don't know what was put in there. I don't know what's in the ground on that, on the east. I know there's some type of under drain, some type of collection system. I don't know the sizing. I don't know what the material is around the pipe to facilitate water from getting into that pipe. To the north, we wanted to keep it separate. It's a new system. It's a different size stone. It's a well-graded material, so there's a lot of voids in that stone. Water can get in there easily. It will be a new system with water, you know, with the intent of just conveying water off the site.
Okay.
But my,
Hold on, a question over there.
Byron
Yes.
Murray from Middlebury, where are you putting snow? When you plow?
I've watched the guys plow, and currently they push the snow to the east.
To the,
So it would
there's the
be,
pile in the south, next to the barn. The east along the cedar fence and by the tennis courts.
Correct.
So is that gonna be continuing further to the north, the pile of snow? Because you're no longer be able to pile in front of where the pile in the south is, where the building is.
Correct.
So that's where the majority of the snow
The
melt will be occurring to the north side.
To the east side. To the Shannon Street side.
Sure.
Shannon and Short Shannon Street side, yes.
Okay. And so within the stormwater plan, it will account for the snow melt? Because all we've been talking about so far is rain. So will the stormwater plan incorporate for snow melt?
the stormwater plan currently is not designed to accommodate, it's not specifically targeted at snow melt.
So, if I'm understanding correctly, so 9 months of the year, we have a stormwater plan, or maybe a little bit more if we're not including snow, but when it melts from now until April, if I just understand what you said, there's not a plan.
There's not a specific designed system to accommodate snow melt. So the piling of snow, where those maintenance practices occur,
Mhm.
the intent is to treat runoff from the rooftops, from the pavement, from the parking lot. So oftentimes the piles of snow coincidentally happen in those same locations.
Because it seems like the treating runoff when it occurs as rain is one stage of a storm management plan. Dealing with where you're putting snow, I mean, I know when I'm plowing my driveway, where I decide to put the snow is where I'm gonna make sure when it's melting, it's not gonna be an inconvenience. But from what I understand, that kind of mindset isn't in place with this plan.
In terms of the the college's operation and where they're plowing their snow,
Would you agree that there's a big impact of where you're putting the snow and how that's gonna affect the storm?
I would say,
Actually, that
over
storm-
current conditions, I would say no.
Mm-hmm.
I would say no. There's not gonna be any, in fact, I would say it would be less, because now you have a building where there's parking. I mean, you may have, you're ultimately end up having more parking to the north. That area will somewhat replace the area to the south that we're losing because of the building. So you're currently plowing things to
But
the
the
east.
snow is still falling on the roof, it's still falling on the roof of the building.
It's falling on the roof, it's falling,
Precipitation
I'm sorry,
Melting.
what's falling on the roof
is
will go
melting
through
and
the
then go to
stormwater
stormwater
treatment
system.
system. Yes.
Okay.
And it's sized to accommodate that.
Okay,
Yeah.
but the volume of precipitation on that
area of impervious surface. I just want to make sure my question is being answered. Where the snow melt is occurring, where those piles of snow are, there is not in place currently a system to catch that snow melt.
We're off the existing part?
Existing.
Yes.
Is that something, as you're continuing the planning process, that's going to be addressed?
I believe with the new parking that the new parking that's being created adjacent to the tennis courts, we will be ripping up a portion of those tennis courts, and that will be converted back to green space. That area will, is part of the planting requirements, that area will be basically, I don't want to say aerated, but it'll allow water to filter across that grass space and then either into that under drain that we have.
We can look, we can examine our snow management practices and take a look at it and keep your comment in mind. It's a good comment, but
That area seems to me, if that's the development of the green space, and you said the snow management plan currently is to push to the east side, that's exactly where that green space is going to be. As you pile up more snow, as it melts, what's right next to the ground, that's still staying frozen, so it's not, I don't know, as impervious as you make that surface until that warms up and starts accepting water.
I understand the point you're making, and we'll consider it and look at it. Okay, we hadn't considered it.
Other questions at this time?
I had a question. Somebody tell me what the square footage is of the St. Mary's parking lot is?
I can't. I don't know.
You know, and I understand about your concerns on your house, but I think right now, all of the water problems you're getting is from St. Mary's parking lot, not from this project.
Shannon
Right.
also runs downhill
Right.
towards my house.
But not from this project, right? Your project is gonna take the water away from the parking lot. Is that not correct? You're gonna move it to the south?
Well, it's going to be directed at St. Mary's driveway.
No, I don't think, no, that's not the way the plan shows.
The roof
No.
is sloped towards that driveway and that steep slope.
No, I don't see it that way, but maybe somebody else can.
The rooftop is
If you go
sloped
back
towards
to
the
that
St. Mary's
color
Park.
picture, you can see how it's sloped. It's clear.
It's sloped that way, but there's the rain garden between
There's the
building
This is a
and
steep slope here to the driveway. This is very steep, and the roof is pitched to that steep slope.
It is all of this here to manage that.
and there's all that there to manage that, correct?
If it works, which a rain garden will not manage 8,000 gallons of
We
water.
have a very competent civil engineer who has to comply with state regulations, and we have
will
to
look
get a
at those
permit
sta-
on
We
it.
will look at the plan very
I
carefully,
understand.
because we live there.
Other questions?
That was on the parking lot.
Yeah.
So, I just wanted to, so I'm Jeff Howarth.
Yep.
I'm from Middlebury, I live on Short Shannon. I'm a professor at the college, and ironically bought a house so I could walk to college, so it's funny to see the parking lot just keep on growing. But I like the old photograph.
The rendering?
No, the air photo.
Oh,
So it was fun to look through the old historical photographs and see that, you know, this was a field at one point, and then the tennis courts got put on it, and then the parking lot and all of that water got put on top of that. So when you talk about changes from the current condition, you just have to think about like a baseline condition being like, if you want to start with the parking lot, it's fine. You could start with this all being tennis courts. You could start with this being a field. And right now, you push all the snow here, and it all kind of drains down. I bought a galvanized tub because I was tired of throwing all my water into my neighbor's yard, and I used the water I used the water from the tub to water the fruit trees I put in around the house. And it's a 75-gallon tub that will fill up in about 12 hours. So I'm dumping. Trees get a lot of water. I dump that constantly. So I'm not sure what this does because my property is actually below this system that is in. If you're going to improve on that, that's fine. If you're going to push all that snow over to here, it's gonna come, I don't know exactly how that'll all work, but I know that you guys believe this will work, and I'm someone who loves data, so the problem is like, you don't think the traffic's gonna change, I think the traffic will likely change. If you're wrong, we just live with it. There's no we don't really know, partly because we don't really have data or any kind of understanding on what the baseline conditions are, what water is kind of moving through, how people are moving around, how losing 40 parking spots for students when you have so many senior dorms in Atwater, or it seems like how we don't really know what the effects of all this are going to be. You're going to increase lighting, I can live with that, because you're going to put more of those bulbs in the parking lot behind the house. But I think for me, and the idea of blasting through here, all of our houses, all of our foundations sit on that ledge that you're going to be blasting through. So for me, the concerns really are the kind of the blasting, if this drainage system is going to work, and why we're kind of trying, and whether you even know what the impact of the college is on the drainage system there, let alone whether you're going to improve on it. And then certainly circulation. There's a footpath that goes down here. I have kids coming through my yard a fair amount to get to the rental down here, to get over to Weybridge. And then there's no sidewalk here. This is so the big thing here is we've been doing piecemeal kind of development here for a long time, and this is just another piecemeal kind of thing. If that's a temporary building, does that mean that the tennis courts are going to come back, or the parking lot change is permanent, right? So you're going to add 40 spots to this parking lot over the long haul, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So, and it hurts to think about putting this huge temporary building in when there's this big empty building sitting right down the way
It's not
from
a college
it.
building.
I know, but it's still there. So it's there wasn't really too many questions there, other than just a few things about the site, the history of it, the way it functions right now, and how we know whether or not we're going to know whether these plans are really right over time, and if they aren't, why does it matter? I mean, we just live with it.
Thank you. Yes.
Do you have a 10-year plan as to what the college is going to do? I mean, are they going to move that building to some other place after 10 years, or?
Potentially, we could move that building elsewhere, or we could just take it apart and recycle it.
Other questions, comments? Yes.
Bill Schaefer, I live on 178 College, and the view from my deck is kind of diagonally across from where this building is proposed. So lighting is a concern, traffic is a concern, but more specifically, I heard comments earlier that there's a significant reduction in the parking area, maybe 15 or 20%. And I also heard a comment alluding to the overflow can go park on various streets, perhaps the street rather, on College Street. And so as the town views the need for parking and the overall perceived traffic change, a question I have is, are those spaces that the college would like to utilize already designated for buildings that exist on those streets? And if so, can that be part of the proposed larger plan where randomly cars can go park where there are designated spaces for specific buildings? And I would allude to a parallel where if a building is proposed, a business is proposing a building, there has to be specific spaces designated by the town for the parking for that business, and that's a requisite as part of the condition. So, in viewing what's been proposed for perhaps not a perceived increase in traffic, and I would beg to differ, random figures of how many clerical spaces may be occupied in that building, it seems to me there needs to be a more concise study of vehicles and perhaps pedestrian traffic as well. If I was to walk on the sidewalk on Shannon Street today in front of Wendy's house, trip and fall on my butt. It's not maintained by the town in any grand way as opposed to downtown. I walk this entire neighborhood with my blind dog 3 times a day, so I'm very aware of the traffic patterns, of pedestrian patterns, of the lack of maintenance, of the water issues in the neighborhood. And it feels to me like there's a lot of issues that are being ignored that are greater details that the town needs to address, and specifically the traffic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Yes.
I'd like to comment on the traffic.
Mm-hmm.
So I live close to College on Shannon. Many times during the week, college students who are going to the main campus are parking all along my side of the street on both sides of my driveway, in combination with a very pronounced increase in traffic caused by commuters, not necessarily college commuters, that are avoiding the Weybridge 4-way or 3-way stop that has been created by the traffic circle. So to get around that, what they're doing is coming off Weybridge and coming down Shannon in the mornings, usually a couple hours in the mornings, at a high rate of speed to cut through so they can miss that light. Or in the evenings, they're coming through the opposite way. And they're not going 25 miles an hour, which is the speed limit. I didn't even know the speed limit on Shannon because there's not a sign on that. There's one sign, and it's over on the corner of Weybridge and Shannon. There's no sign on the very straight shot that goes right by my house where commuters and college students, and I know they're college students because they're driving out of state cars, and I watch them go up the parking lot. So it's very dangerous. I can barely get out of my driveway. As a matter of fact, today I went to back out. I looked towards College, no cars. I looked the other way. I started to back out, and all of a sudden this car shot past me. I mean, going probably 40 or 50 miles an hour. So there's a huge traffic problem on the street. I've called the police multiple times over the past 2 years. I've asked for a traffic survey from the town manager recently because I live there. I see what's happening there. And I know that this project, if it goes through, will create a huge traffic problem, a very dangerous situation for myself, for my neighbors, for the college kids walking in the street, for everyone, because it's a highway now. And it's not supposed to be that way. It's a residential street. And I think that all of you live somewhere in Middlebury, possibly in a neighborhood. How would you feel if your kids or your pet or somebody accidentally stepped in the street while a car was whizzing by at 40, 50 miles an hour? It's not, that street is not built for that kind of traffic. And this is going to be a markedly increased amount of traffic because, I forget your name, I'm sorry.
Tom.
Tom and I had a conversation, and Tom stated to me that the 181 cars that were parked up in the parking lot that I counted earlier in the month when the college was in session basically don't move. Most of those are college kids that park there, and they don't move their cars, according to this gentleman. Well, add to that 62 staff members that are commuting every day, back and forth, in and out. And then the 100+ students that probably, possibly will be driving to that parking lot. That's a lot of extra traffic on Shannon Street in combination with the huge problem we already have. It's not built for this huge building to be there. It's not a highway. Make a different access. I suggested making the parking lot entrance a one-way, exit only, and making the entrance next to the Wright Theater. Have that, all that traffic that won't exist come through the college campus. I mean, let's be fair. I have nothing to do with the college. I don't make any money from the college. I just live there. And why am I subjected to all of the college's traffic and all the noise and all the ugliness of a huge building that originally was planned for the other end of the parking lot, but was too ugly for the students to look at from their dining hall? But now I should see it in my front yard. And everyone in town, does that make sense? Is that fair? I pay $6,000 a year in taxes to live on Shannon Street. And I'm gonna be looking at that ugly thing for the rest of my life. I'm 59 years old. You can't tell me they're gonna spend $4.5 million on a building and take it down in 10 years. It's not gonna happen.
Wendy, excuse me, how long have you lived in your home?
I've owned my home for 12 years.
Okay, so St. Mary's School was in session while you were there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
A little bit more to elaborate on the parking aspect of this. A question to the board, and maybe it's too premature. The college seems to police, by virtue of, as Tom had mentioned, I think campus security, the amount of parking required for their parking lots, based on somebody's interpretation. I don't know what the formula is. So how does the town enter into the need for additional parking in terms of, this is a conditional application? Will the town require its valuation of the necessary parking spaces, or will the town strictly take the campus's word that this is adequate?
If you're asking me,
I'm asking the board.
I would respond is, if there isn't any place for those kids to park up there, what are they gonna do with their cars? Take them to the dorm with them?
They park on Short Shannon Street overnight.
So I think
Then
that's,
you call the police, and you have them ticketed, and you have them removed.
your board isn't on trial here. Yeah, I'm not addressing the audience. I'm trying to give some direction to the chair in terms of how to run an orderly hearing, because things are getting a little.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
It's okay.
Perhaps we could answer the factual question on the parking, given that it's in the regulations. In that, as I understand
it.
it.
You could take that as a comment, like really we're kind of collecting citizen input, so.
Yes.
True.
I would actually take that as a comment, Bill, rather than like a
Okay.
question we need to answer right now. I think it's a good comment.
I said it may be premature.
Yeah,
I'm
you didn't
just
hear me
trying to
across the way, but what I was saying is maybe we can note that as a comment that we need to discuss in our deliberation.
Thank you.
And parking is, the parking requirements are set out in the regulations. We do look at those and have looked at those in connection with this application.
Okay, other questions at this time from the public?
I get,
Yes.
What are the anticipated effects of the blasting for testing, the test blasting and also the blasting for?
The anticipated effects of it?
I know when I was purchasing my house, I think it's 43 Short Shannon Street, there was quite a bit of additional support that went into the roof system in the attic, and also additional supports that was needed in the basement. And through consulting with various structural engineers and contractors, the thought was there was through blasting for Atwater, and it seemed like the work was done at around the same time, the repairs that were necessary for the house. So I'm just concerned with additional blasting, because half of my house sits on ledge, that there could be adverse effects from the blasting.
Okay, I think typically the process is that they will come and inspect your house and see what it is at that time after the blasting, which it's their hope, I would assume, that there isn't any effect. But after the blasting occurs, they would come and visit your house again to see if there was any damage that happened in between that time
So
period.
it'd be before and after.
Before and after, yes.
Before and after. And I'll just add one thing, that we've, that we could blast or we could drill and chip, okay? And the drilling and chipping actually is a little louder and it takes a little longer, but it's less vibration and it's a little less risky, if you want to call it that. And the blasting contractors now, because of new federal regulations about purchasing and storing explosives and the cost of insuring your company, I mean, there's only one blasting company left. So down at Ridgeline, we did the drilling and chipping, and it went very well with no disturbance to the neighborhood.
Okay.
Kevin?
Yes.
Somewhere in this packet, I did see a memo from the police chief about parking and
Yes.
traffic and what have you. I'd like to put that on the record, but I can't find it anywhere.
It's in the staff report.
It's in the staff.
Excerpted in the staff
It's gonna
report.
be under this cover here.
I was just trying to review what it said.
It's on page 4.
Can you read it out loud so we could all hear it?
Yes, page 4.
Under municipal impacts.
Yes.
Are there any other questions at this time from the public?
There was a request for Don to read
Oh.
Tom Hanley's comments out loud.
Oh, okay.
This is the police department comments. Chief Hanley reviewed the college building plan and it stated it would not create any undue burden on the police service nor have any significant impact on current traffic patterns on Shannon Street or its campus, primarily faculty and staff, but this increase will be negligible, offset by the recent closing of St. Mary's School.
Skip the line.
You missed, you
Skipped
skipped
a
a
line.
Oh,
line.
I'm sorry.
Shannon.
Study due to the relocation of this area from other parts of the campus. He says his professional opinion is that with the offset of St. Mary's, that it should be an offset.
Okay.
He's the professional and he's the one that makes the comment, so.
Okay. Other questions from the public? Yes.
I just wanted to say that Anne brought up landscaping and screening, and in the zoning ordinance, section 766, it states that about essential characters of neighborhoods and screening of large, unattractive buildings, and it requires someone to comply, which would make it that you would have to put in 30 to 50 foot high evergreens along two sides of the building so that I wouldn't have to look at that building out of my house, because all my west and north windows look directly at that, not to mention that I won't ever see the sunset again from my house.
We will be addressing the landscape.
So it is stated in the ordinance that I read. Could I bring up another something, which is noise? I know that this gentleman thought he thinks I won't hear the HVAC that's going to be cooling a 23,000 square foot building, but I'm sorry to say that he's wrong. I recently called Green Mountain Power because for 3 days I was hearing a buzzing noise inside my house while all my windows were closed in the winter, coming from the solar house area, and I thought it might be a power outage problem, so I called Green Mountain Power to report the buzzing noise that I've been hearing for 3 days. Turns out it was a college transformer problem they were having, and they notified them and they fixed it. But I heard that buzzing noise for 3 days inside my house with the windows closed. I don't use air conditioning. I like to have my windows open. I'm going to be subjected to a very loud air conditioning unit running all summer long, day and night. I don't think that that's fair. Why would any of you where you live be happy with that? think so.
Brett, would you want to address the decibel level of the,
I'm sorry, I'm not
Okay.
a heating ventilation engineer. I can address that question.
I have one other
Yeah.
point.
Okay.
Temporary, what is the zoning law in Middlebury for temporary buildings?
they have to meet a conditional use permit?
So there is some kind of a written statute about a temporary building?
I don't think so.
Well, it's not specifically for a temporary building, but for any building, they have to meet, qualify for a conditional use permit, and that's what this application is for.
So there's set standards that would have to be met to,
As is for any building, temporary or not. We're treating this as a permanent building.
as a permanent building.
What zoning district is this
Institutional.
institutional? And this is part of a planned unit development, is that
Correct.
correct? What's the lot size?
Got me.
Is there access to that information somewhere publicly? The site plan?
The lot size of the site itself?
Yeah, the setbacks and the frontage and it's all that accessible?
That's all, that would be on the site plan, yes.
Mhm.
So that can be, that's accessible through the town if I wanted a copy?
Yep.
Public record.
Okay, other questions at this time? All right, we're gonna go into the next phase, which would be the amended master plan. Or an updated master plan, not amended. Would you like to briefly go through that?
I will go briefly through it. So, the current college master plan was,
No? Okay, hold on.
Go ahead.
We're gonna have a 5-minute recess.
5-minute recess, thank you.
Okay, we'll continue the hearing and talk about the master plan.
Okay, my name's Dave Donahue, and I work in the President's Office as Chief of Staff and Director of Community Relations. I'm here talking about the master plan update because I chaired a process, a year-long process of adding to the existing master plan. And I want to emphasize probably the most important point is that the 2008 master plan continues to exist as sort of a primary planning document. There was a recognition that some assumptions and thinking changed between 2008 and 2017, some of which were worth updating. And so that's what's reflected in the document that you have before you. Two things I would point out about the document that you have before you. I'm not going to go section by section, but Section 9, accessibility. Accessibility gets a little bit of airtime in the 08 document, but not as much as it probably should have. And so we took advantage of this opportunity to do a lot more around accessibility. And then the other section is Section 10, lands and real estate. That too is a section that didn't exist in the master plan. There's reference to lands, but there wasn't really a clear statement around the college and how it views its land holdings and real estate holdings. And so that is also a new section. I think, again, I would just, cite the first paragraph of the document, which notes that we recommit to the general principles laid out in the 2008 plan, especially the idea that a successful master plan is an organic, dynamic instrument that lends itself to interpretation. So we view this as a guide and a compass. I know that sometimes it's viewed as almost a contract, and so we wanted to bring it up to speed with the latest thinking of the college. Tom, do you have anything you want to add?
Just, that 2007 was more than a decade ago, and the college is a fluid institution. As you read through the update, you'll see where. We now have a graduate school in California. We now have more students, more faculty, more staff than we had in 2007 when this was written. We went, along with everybody else, through a financial crisis, which we still have not fully recovered from. So just, it's, as Dave said, it's a compass, not a roadmap. So we wanted to write a retrospective that said, here's what the college has done between 2007 and 2017. And here's how it complied with or was in the spirit of the 2007 master plan. And here's a few instances where it wasn't, and here's why.
So I would add couple things, and then happy to take questions. I would be remiss if I didn't note Nancy Malcolm, who served on our working group, who helped provide valuable input, and Jen, who was able to do a review of the document and provide some input as well. Our expectation is that we will do some version of this every 5 to 10 years. So 2022, we'll look at this document. This document is meant to exist with the 08 master plan. It's not meant to exist on its own.
Right.
So it should really be read side by side. In 2022, we expect we'll take a look at this, we'll take a look at the master plan, and we may at that point in time do an update. Hopefully things aren't changing so rapidly that 2022 would require an extensive update, but we think every 5 to 10 years, there's gonna be enough additional information and thinking that it's worth doing an update so that we stay in close contact and communication with the town. Happy to take questions.
Questions from the board at this time? Okay, questions from the public at this time? Comments?
Where can we read this?
Yeah.
I think it's a public document on our website, but I will.
College's website?
Yeah, on the college's website, but I will, it's Wendy?
Yes.
Okay.
I can email it to Wendy right now, if that's helpful.
Yeah.
What's your email address? What's your email address?
Ann?
Yeah, it's intended to be a public document, so we're happy to get it to you and have it posted.
How many students live off campus now?
The number by agreement with the town was set at not more than 125. We brought that down under 100. And I can't give you the exact number right now, but.
Are these the students who are driving about and using commuter spaces and other spaces that members of the public have addressed?
Do I think our students living off campus are taking up spaces in and around neighborhoods?
No, I understood the college to say that the off-campus resident students were allocated
Commuter spaces.
commuter spaces.
If they make an application and the Department of Public Safety agrees that they live far enough away such that we'll give them a commuter permit.
And other than physically handicapped students, do other students drive to class from residence halls?
So it's.
You'll get different answers from
You'll
different
get
people.
different answers from
Yeah.
different, yes.
What I would say is that students, we make an attempt for student parking to be sort of inconvenient in the sense of, it's not easy to go jump in your car, it's not right outside your dorm, and then you can drive right to your class and find parking
Find
proximate to your
spot.
class. That's not how parking is set up, but do some students choose to drive anyway? Yes.
Having attended a university where no undergraduates were allowed to have cars of any sort, and which had a campus considerably larger in terms of square miles than Middlebury, I'm curious as to, I note that it says in here that the efforts to suggest first years shouldn't have cars was not well received. Is that something on an ongoing basis that you're hoping you'll be able to achieve?
I would say it's not an active conversation right now. The idea of restricting first-year students from having cars is not, that's not a subject we have revisited of late. But it's the kind of topic that, like many others, comes up on a cyclical basis for one reason or another.
when I was growing up, freshmen didn't have cars on campus at Middlebury.
Well, we had, no one had cars.
Where did you go
Well-
to school? Your school wasn't in rural Vermont, though.
It was not, but then students were not all housed on campus either, within the vast square mileage of it.
I remember the last time we had that freshman vehicle restriction was a little while back, and you'd be surprised what the parents of the first years have to say.
Oh, yeah.
That they don't want their children, their child is a responsible driver. She has had their driver's license since they were 16 years old and had a car since they were 17.
But the question isn't responsibility.
Why should I feel comfortable with my student? I don't want my kid getting into some other student's car. I'd rather they drive themselves.
Okay.
I think the other reality is that public transportation is not as strong as it has been. The bus, when I went to school, I took the bus for the first couple of years. The bus is not as reliable. Students have found ways to privately secure transportation in and around holidays, but it's not what it used to be.
David,
But I appreciate the question.
I've lost touch somewhat, but is the push still to get, or is there a time frame or a timeline to get all of the students on campus living?
Yeah, I think the push is to further reduce the number of students off campus, but not to eliminate it.
Okay.
I think there's a belief philosophically that some students really want to live off campus and really are ready to live off campus, particularly students who have spent their junior year abroad in a major city. To come back and be in a dorm is a pretty abrupt transition. We think that there are some students, it's a very healthy living option to be off campus. So I think the number is less than 125, which is what it was set at, but it's probably not zero either.
Okay.
Other questions from the board at this time? Any staff questions? Any questions or comments from the public? Hearing none?
Thank you for your time.
Thanks for your time.
So, before they leave, Kevin,
Go ahead.
what is staff, we're gonna go into a deliberative session to discuss both of these items, or are we gonna discuss this in public and then deliberative session on the other one? I'd like to know what the board.
Well, depends on what the motion.
Well, I don't have an issue with, we're talking in open about the master plan. I think that's pretty cut and dried. I think we probably should go into deliberative session on the other.
Yes.
So that's just a suggestion.
So your motion would be to approve the updated master plan?
My motion would be to approve the updated master
Okay,
plan.
let's see if we can get a second to that. Is there
I'll
a
second that.
Is, motion to second it. Is there discussion on the motion? All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay,
Make a motion, we go into deliberative session?
yes. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are going into deliberative session, and that means everyone must leave the room.
Your master plan.
I don't know what he's.
Certainly isn't you or me.
Hey, you and I, Gary. It was a good luncheon the other day.
You all set? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Is there a motion from the board to come out of deliberative session?
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Is there a motion on the,
Master plan.
do we need that? Did we make the motion on that?
We did that one in open session.
Okay. Is there a motion on the conditional use permit? And amendment to the PUD.
One clarification, we need two motions?
No,
That's one.
we already moved on the.
We did that
We
one.
did that.
Adopt the plan.
All right.
She thinks I was kidding.
Go ahead.
Okay. I move approval of the, following the testimony at tonight's hearing, and public comment received, I move approval of the conditional use permit and PUD amendment with the following conditions. One, that, the applicant work with staff to locate their snow storage, locations on their site plan. Two, that they coordinate landscape screening of the southeast corner with staff.
And the parking lot edge, is that?
And the parking lot and the east edge of the parking lot, as shown in the rendering, with staff. Third, that they coordinate on connectivity and sidewalk connections in particular with staff. And finally, that, that the Department of Public Works, personnel of the Department of Public Works confirm or review their understanding of the capacity of town systems at this location.
And also the fire hydrant.
And the necessity for, well, that's a separate, and that the fire chief confirm the acceptability of the proposed fire protection equipment. Is that fine?
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded by Gary. Any questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Other business?
We're not having a meeting on the 26th.
Unless David tells us
Unless there's
we are.
something, right?
So what's coming up?
There's one possibly pending.
I won't
We're
be here
looking
on the
2-3
12th.
weeks away.
So we don't have anything on the agenda for March yet at this point?
It's kind of, no, possibly. And you're not here on the 12th.
No.
I'm not here on the 12th.
You're not here on March, right?
For these meetings, yes.
Is there anybody else that has scheduling conflicts in March?
Just town meeting, but that would.
Gary, Mike, can you serve on both boards?
No.
When do the appointments occur?
Well, his would be immediately after the town meeting.
This board.
April.
We're all staggered.
April.
Be in April. Okay. All right.
Who's up?
Kevin, Rick, and Dave.
Tell me.
Oh,
Dave,
sorry. Kevin, Dave, and
Scott.
Scott. Thank you. Sorry.
And-
I had a location. I was phoning in on it.
Other business?
Room for an alternate too, probably.
That's right.
So,
Other business? Go ahead, Don.
never mind.
Anybody else?
I just have one quick question. I don't want to drag this out. Any further word from Tony Neary on his Greg's Meat Market?
Yeah, I was talking to him today.
Okay.
Yep.
He's still moving in that direction, maybe?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, he thinks he might have a couple people.
They cut the
who
hole
could
today.
Help him with a grocery idea.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Saw the excavator.
They cut the hole today. They're getting ready to, they're doing the.
You say they cut the hole. What does that mean?
They put for the walk and all the stuff outside today. They got the hole dug and.
Oh, for the entrance.
For the new entrance. Yeah,
I
so
wondered what they were
they're gonna
doing
do
there.
that. I was talking with them today down there.
He did ask permission, and I was like, all right. It sounded like just some exploratory work. He's not building anything, so.
Anything else? from
Just to
anyone?
let you know that my sources have confirmed that Mr. Trudeau did buy that property across from his place on Route 7, where the septic system has failed, and he's gonna permit to go under the road.
He does have a permit?
I understand he's going for it with
Okay.
the state, so that he can discharge his 600 gallons a day extra into his mound system behind his other property. So, we're gonna be dealing with that.
Are we?
I gotta go meet with him tomorrow. And one of the first questions is, where's the sewer going? 'Cause he doesn't
Across the road, on the road, it's going over.
he doesn't wanna say what's going on there, cause he might have to pull a permit, and the permit would trigger.
He's gonna say, regardless of what he does, he's gonna.
And that system has failed, that's why we foreclosed on that property.
I know, but that's a sewer, but does that come back to this board? I don't, that does,
You don't know.
Sewer issue.
no, it's not.
He's gonna need a permit for his other property across the road, because he already has 2 dwellings over there.
Well, he may need a permit for the use, but he wouldn't need it for the actual septic, he'd need a state permit.
These guys heard an application last year, and it was all very tangled up in this
Oh,
the
yeah, you should
wastewater
have seen
permit.
that.
And this was actually Don's prediction, and we all thought he was crazy, so there you go. How's
Okay.
it feel to be right?
All right, well, thank you, Don, for that information.
And I meant to mention in deliberative session, but it's always good to have a refresher once a year that you know, if anyone ever approaches you guys on a contentious application, you're not to talk to them.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Or else it's ex parte. Okay, cool.
Anything else?
Get stupid.
Is there,
You get stupid.
Move, I forgot the word.
to adjourn?
Yeah, I got a 9 o'clock tea time tomorrow. I get going.
Is there a second?
I'm going to the mountain at 8 o'clock.
Second.
Moved and seconded, discussion on the motion.
I'll take my tea
All in
time.
favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?